So I've been designing some enchanted furniture that is trying to pack kind of light and feedback into ordinary objects. So for example, I made a table called the balance table that tries to encourage conversational balance. So just like a good meeting facilitator would have somebody that's kind of making sure that the introverts are heard as well as the extroverts, this is a table that listens to the conversation and gradually lights up in front of the people who are speaking. So over the course of 10 or 15 minutes, you can kind of glance down at the table and you can see who's had airtime and who hasn't. And this in general kind of helps to moderate the conversation so the extroverts talk less and the introverts talk more. Yeah, I guess I'm a bit of a polyglot. Like I was a physics major and also a fine arts major, and lighting just has so much control over us psychologically that I became really interested in like using light as a behavioral kind of feedback loop creator. So back in 2000, I created this single pixel ambient orb that would change color based on stock market or weather or when the next bus was coming. People loved it and people really responded to it. So they would trade stocks more often, which is probably not good. They would rely more on public transportation. They would monitor their blood pressure levels and take better care of their diabetes. So this became this really kind of behavioral motivator for people in order to change their behavior. What I'm most proud of is this insight that light can really nudge and motivate people to do things differently. I think we can encourage people to exercise more when you use light as a feedback mechanism. You can encourage more balanced conversations. You can encourage more awareness of energy conservation behavior. Like all of these things that we would kind of hope for about our future self, light can be used in order to give people feedback in order to do those things that they already want to do. Well, as a lighting designer, what's been really inspirational about the practice that I've had is the advent of the internet and all of the data feeds that are available have been just transformational. Like the ability to have when is the next bus coming as a data feed online, or weather, or traffic, or health biometrics, people's affective states, to be able to know what that is and then reproject that with light has basically made my career as a lighting designer, just to be able to aggregate all this information and display it. Yeah, I've been focusing on behavioral feedback loops as kind of my central thesis as a lighting designer. So I believe that light can act as a dashboard, something that can work in your periphery, something that can work at low resolution and very fast with your pre-attentive brain. And people really like the simplicity of light and pattern to represent information. And that's been always kind of the insight is like, could we make objects that relay information to people without them having to, pay attention to that without a lot of cognitive load, right? There's this notion called pre-attentive processing, which I learned about in cognitive psychology, which is there's a big part of our brain dedicated to paying attention to things in our periphery. And if we can display information that we could act on, like when is the next, how much energy are you using? When is your Uber coming? Do you have any messages that are waiting? All of these things could be kind of mapped into cues that you can perceive ambiently. That's kind of what I've been working around and designing around with my career. I think there's the potential for lighting to do so much more than just illuminate, right? So, I mean, Signify is like a great moniker for what lighting should be able to do. It should be able to tell us, like, are we on time? Are we late for something? Is there something urgent that requires our attention? Should we focus our attention on something else? It can help us understand the health of a business, the health of a loved one, all of these kind of data feeds that the internet can deliver, and that today we rely on apps to show us this status, could be represented in our environment as calm computing and lighting around us. and that's what I'm super excited about. So I think as a society, we're getting more and more attuned to dashboards and information visualization. The dashboards on our cars are more and more a design space. We have rear view mirrors that show us not only who's behind us, but if someone's in our blind spot. I think there's this wealth of information that designers are trying to craft and to summarize into these spaces. And I think there's this, I'm inspired by the complexity and how those things could be made much more simple. There's a big need for new tools in lighting. I mean, I think that right now, a lot of the hacks that we've done in order to make reactive tables or reactive lights have all been things where we've had to write code and use Arduinos. I think what Signify could do is to build a much richer sandbox set of tools that can allow people to make the connection between generative design and data feeds and the response of lighting, on the other hand, to really kind of put those worlds together. Something that artists and hackers and inventors like me have been doing for a while, but I think everyone has the appetite to put these the expression of lights with the interesting dynamic data, and I think Signify has a fantastic role to play in plugging those two parts of the world together. My name is David Rose. I'm a researcher at MIT, an author, and a designer of enchanted objects.